In the United States in 2021, Ford was the number 2 seller in the rankings for electric cars. The Ford Mustang Mach E was in 3rd place behind Tesla, Model 3 and Model Y in 1st and 2nd. Well, now the good news for you Aussies. And also some interesting news for current Mustang Mach E owners. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Electric Viking. My name is Sam Evans. I'm coming to you here from Melbourne, Australia. Yep, I know. I'm in the backwaters here of Australia land where, to be honest, we don't buy a lot of EVs. That said, sales of EVs did triple in Australia last year versus the previous year. And pretty much all of that was thanks to Tesla, who sold 12,000 electric cars here in Australia. 12,000 of a total of 17,000. You can see they well and truly have the market here in Australia. But fortunately, some new players are coming very soon. The real question though is, what will the volume be like for these new players? Well, we know Hyundai is here with the Ioniq 5 and also their other electric vehicle. Not all that interesting, so I won't talk about that. But the Ioniq 5, on the other hand, well, Hyundai had well over 10,000 people who wanted to buy the Ioniq 5, but unfortunately, they're only selling a small number of them. Now, the same issue we have for the Kia EV6. That went on sale recently, about a week ago, and it's sold out now for 4 years. 4 years. Why is it sold out for 4 years? It's because Kia is not selling very many of them here in Australia, unfortunately. So here in Australia, we have pretty big problems with getting enough electric cars. People do want them. There just isn't supply. Now, obviously, we do have some good news. That is the Tesla Model Y will be here in Australia this year. And, well, fortunately, we'll have the Chinese version. Well, maybe not fortunately, because when you think about it, the version coming out of Texas, that is going to be insane. But putting that aside, because we're never going to get that anyway, the reality is the new lithium iron phosphate standard range version now is so much better than what the other version was. It's been updated. It's got a bigger battery pack. The cold weather performance is significantly better. The range is longer. Battery degradation. I mean, look, if you wanted a mid-sized SUV electric car, the new Tesla Model Y standard range with the LFP batteries is really the ideal car. But fortunately for us Aussies here, we now have, well, we'll soon have another choice. Now, before I get to that, the Mustang Mach E. Ford sold over 27,000 Mustang Mach E's in the United States in 2021. But the bizarre thing is here, they actually built 64,000 of them in Mexico. You would think the most likely place they'd be selling those vehicles would be in the US. But the reality is, the majority of those went to Europe. Now, Ford actually sold closer to 70,000 Mustang Mach E's in 2021. Now, to be honest, if you look at the Chinese sales numbers from all the electric car brands, it's really not that many. But Ford plans on massively ramping up their sales of the Mach E this year, potentially doubling sales this year. So that'd be good. They've 140,000 Mustang Mach E's coming out this year. I think it could be more. I think it could be even closer to 200,000 this year. That would mean potentially a lot more supply for Americans. But to make this happen, Ford has had to pause production of a new electric car. So it has sort of meant, although this is a good thing, Ford's ramping up production of the Mach E, it has meant in one other area they've had to stop their electrification progress. Now for Ford, you know, they are sort of struggling right now. Ford brand reported 167,545 vehicle sales in December in the US. That's down 15% year over year. And obviously year over year, I mean last year, that was a bad year for Ford as well. Now the year-to-date number is 1.82 million. That's down 6% versus last year. Obviously, Ford is saying that this decrease is associated with the production constraints that car companies have been facing, as demand for Ford vehicles apparently remains strong. Now, sales of electrified vehicles increased by 121% for Ford year over year to enable Ford the honor, I guess you could say, of their electrified vehicles growing 36% faster than the segment overall in 2021, while they achieved new sales records for the month of December and for all of 2021. Now, how many electric vehicles did Ford sell in December? Well, they actually sold 12,300 purely electric vehicles in December. That's a pretty good result. But to put this in context, you know, electric car startup Xpeng sold 16,000 electric cars in December, so even more than the huge legacy auto company of Ford. Well, now it looks as though Ford is set to sell the Mach E in Australia. The Mach E has been registered with IP Australia. However, Ford is yet to lock in a timeline for it being launched locally. So the key question is here. I don't know the answer to this question, but maybe one of you does. Will the Ford Mustang Mach E that's coming to Australia come from China, or will it come from the United States? Now, Ford Australia are clearly preparing to launch the Mustang Mach E electric SUV in here in Australia, which is great news for us. Personally, I think it's a great vehicle, looks good, has pretty good performance. Efficiency could be better, but I mean, the reality is it's pretty good. It's a pretty damn nice car. Unfortunately, though, we don't know a timeline for when the car will go on sale here in Australia. Now, the nameplates Mach E and Mustang Mach E were filed by the manufacturer with IP Australia, the government body which regulates and enforces intellectual property laws. That happened on the 25th of January 2022. So 3 days ago. Now, unfortunately, Ford Australia are keeping its cards close to its chest, not revealing when it's going to come out here in Australia, and not even confirming that it actually will. But I mean, clearly, you don't go and register names for IP unless you have plans to actually sell those cars. Because Ford well knew when they registered those names that this news would actually come out. Someone would find out, people would report on it, and obviously they're not going to go and make that happen unless they do plan on selling the Mach E here in Australia. Now, this is all that Ford Australia had to say. Mustang Mach E is an amazing SUV with a truly unique, innovative approach and classic Mustang style. We love it, but it's not currently available to us in Australia. Now, interestingly, Ford Australia President and CEO Andrew Burkich said late last year, Mach E is an incredible product, but what we do know is that basically it is sold out. Well, currently, there seems to be about 4,700 Mach E's in dealerships in the United States. So I'm not sure sold out is the correct terminology. Maybe it depends on the model you want to buy. However, keep in mind, last year Ford announced it would launch at least 5 electrified vehicles in Australia before the end of 2024. That means they've got less than 2 years now to launch 5 new electric cars. Obviously, one of those will be the Mustang Mach E. It's very clear it's going to happen. The only question is, when will it happen? Now, when it comes here for sale in Aussie land and down under, the Mach E would join the lineup alongside a plug-in hybrid version of the Ford Escape SUV, and a battery electric variant of the Ford Transit van, referred to as the E-Transit, and promised for local launch here in the middle of this year, which is great. It looks as though we could potentially have 2 fully electric cars by the middle of the year this year from Ford. Now, in addition to that, apparently Ford are manufacturing a hybrid Ford Ranger, as in a plug-in hybrid, and that could actually be in Australia by the end of 2022. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Mustang Mach E, in its GT performance, guys, so in its highest performance edition, it has dual electric motors, one on each axle, and a combined 358 kilowatt and 858 newton meters of torque, which it sends to all 4 wheels. So it's pretty quick. 0 to 62 miles an hour in, I think, around about 3.8 seconds. It'll do 0 to 62 miles an hour or 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in around about 3.5 seconds. So nearly as fast as a Tesla Model 3 performance. Now, that model comes with an 88 kilowatt hour lithium-ion battery pack with a range of 418 kilometers on the EPA test cycle. So it's not all that efficient compared to some other vehicles. So that's one key area that Ford definitely could improve in over the next 12 months, and I imagine they probably will. Now, speaking of right-hand drive, for those of you who don't know, here in Australia, we drive cars with right-hand drive, and so we actually drive on the left side of the road, which is, in my opinion, totally retarded. We should have all kept the entire world the same side of the road. Doesn't make any sense. But that said, right now the Mustang Mach E can be bought in right-hand drive for buyers in the United Kingdom. Now, in addition to that, the trademark Mustang Mach E nameplate was actually trademarked in New Zealand within the past few days. So clearly, this Mustang Mach E is coming to not only Australia, but also New Zealand. I would say it looks as though it'll happen this year. Now, for those of you who don't know, for those customers already driving Ford electric vehicles, Ford is looking to educate and entertain in some interesting ways. Now, one method they're doing is using an escape room concept for the Mustang Mach E to provide a new interactive experience for people who are, well, very bored. I don't know how this would go using this in traffic, but anyway, interesting idea. Now, news of this new game for Ford's electric vehicles came from Ford Europe, who developed the game concept alongside the software enablement and research team in Ford's Emerging Technology and Innovation Group and the IoT Group in Palo Alto, California. Now, The Electric says that according to Ford, the escape room style concept was developed for the Mach E to showcase how gaming could actually help drivers become familiar with the functionality of their new electric car. Now, when the game is activated through either an iOS device connected via Apple CarPlay or through the Mach E display, players are given tasks prompted through the vehicle's speaker system. Now, furthermore, other components within Mach E allow it to interact with its passengers to guide them and vice versa. Some of the Mach E functions that operate during the escape room game are the electric seats, hands-free tailgate, air conditioning system, and headlights. Now, The Electric says that while this initial work in progress game is mostly meant for fun, Ford is actually testing the potential of this sort of gaming to educate young drivers or fix bad habits of experienced drivers. Carsten Stark, technical expert in interior materials and customer experience, Ford Research and Advanced Engineering at Ford of Europe, that's one very long title, wow, spoke of the technology. He said, "This is a bit of fun that has a serious side, as it shows just what could be possible with the technology that we have in cars today. Having the ability to create interaction between vehicle and driver could open up new ways to explore other possibilities in the future, like an interactive owner's manual or even driver coaching." I think he's got actually a really good point. In fact, I love this idea. It's brilliant. I mean, gamification is what helps to learn anything. Anyone can learn easier through gamification. I don't know about you, but that's how I learned to touch type, by playing a computer game. And honestly, there's lots of things that I've learned through gamification. So I love this idea from Ford. No one wants to read a user's manual. Doing that kind of thing sucks. I have so many of them for all these new products that we get, and I probably read maybe 5% of them, or some of them none, because they're so big and tedious. But by gamifying the user manual, then you can learn everything much quicker, and it's much more fun as well. So Ford says they see the gaming concept as a potential glimpse into the future of multiple applications that can either entertain or educate drivers and their passengers during times in the vehicle when it's not in motion, like at charging stations. Great idea for a charging station where you're just sitting there waiting for the car to charge, right? Now, Ford also suggested that it might entertain passengers while autonomous EVs drive themselves in the future. Now, in regards to this game Ford have created, one of those popular comments said this. I want to hear what you have to say. "Yeah, that's it, Ford. Copy Tesla's stupid gimmicks instead of their good ideas. People want a flawless, reliable charging network, not video games. Might as well take away half the steering wheel and turn the signal stalks as long as you're determined to follow Elon down every stupid path he takes." Wow, slip and slider, you sound like one very angry individual. Personally, I love this approach from Ford. I like that it's not only the actual concept in itself. I mean, that's nice. It's really more the way they're approaching something by thinking outside the box. I think Ford needs as much innovation as it can get in order to compete globally with all these new challenges that are going to come from China, with Tesla, with the electric car disruption that's going to happen over the next decade. The more innovation a company has, the better. So you foster this innovation, you encourage it as much as possible. Ford, keep at it. You know what? Bring the Mustang Mach E here to Australia. I'd love to test drive one. I think they look fantastic. But let me know in the comment section below. Have you considered, or would you consider buying a Ford Mustang Mach E if it cost, say, $40,000 US? In whatever currency you're in, whether that's New Zealand currency or Australian or UK or Europe. If your Mustang Mach E was priced at around $40,000 US, would you consider one? Thanks for watching the channel. Look forward to seeing you again on the next one. Bye-bye.